My name is Catherine O'Neill.
And I'm Stacy Welton, and this is Fund and Flip.
Welcome to Fund and Flip.
We are super happy to be able to have you guys with us. Nicole is Jagger's mom, and so we're going to have a little bit of a family discussion about private lending today. But before we start, Nicole, Jagger, do you want to tell us a little bit about a little bit about your family, where you got started, how did you end up in real estate, how did you end up where you are today? So maybe tell us just a little bit about your past.
Sure. Well, my husband and I, even when our kids were very little, always thought investing in real estate was a great idea, but we waited and waited and waited, and ended up going to, some sort of a real estate seminar, and it got the fire under us, and we saw what other people were doing, and we thought we can do this too, because the whole time you just second guess yourself, or, other people can do it, but maybe we can't. We always loved renovating and decorating our own homes, and had done well with flipping to ourselves, the idea of, increasing the value of our home, selling it, going into another home. And we got the bug. And from there, we definitely grew into, rentals and things like that. And then the end goal was to get a cottage, which we just finished. We very much wanted to involve the boys. We have two sons. The other one was supposed to be here, but he got called off to work. So work ethic is important to us. So we definitely had them involved right from the get-go. Like my husband, when they were little, like, here's a hammer, here's nails, but they were very active with the renovations all along, and excited, and they got to see the before and the after. And then when it came to, the rentals, they got to see the monetary aspect of that. So it's like, we bought it for this, we sold it for this. So we were always very open about talking about the process with them. And when it came to the private lending side, when I started delving into that, and I'm a mortgage agent as well, and I feel very lucky that I got introduced to private lending from the start, and have a lot of investors as clients. So private lending is always, kind of needed in the background sometimes. And so I practiced it first, because I don't like bringing anything to anyone else unless I've done it myself. And I love the concept, I love the idea, and I wanted to be able to kind of tell friends and family about it, trail that over to clients. So we did some private lending as well. And now we know we're more, a little bit more picky and choosy on the active part of real estate investing. And we love private lending. So to that, and maybe I'll say, go ahead.
Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe some of like how did you hear about private lending? Because one of the things we've talked about is you're not taught this in school, it's not taught in university or college. So kind of how did you find out about private lending? Maybe what were some of the opportunities? You said that you got involved first, and then maybe talk about, how you brought the boys in.
Yeah, so the private lending was quite new to me. Our real estate agent had talked about, one of her clients, a woman that loaned out money all the time. And I thought, that's interesting. And that seems so risky. Why would you just give your money to somebody, to buy a house or whatnot? But then, seeing real estate and the market grow, I did always see value in land and a house, right? And something that's tangible. And then when I got the bug through, we joined, the real estate investing group. And then we started, we bought rentals, flipped to ourselves. The brokerage that I joined, because this inspired me to become a mortgage agent, because I was running into a lot of walls at the bank. And they weren't understanding the concepts of building a portfolio or leveraging. And again, it's so risky, go into our mutual funds. But I had already lost a lot of money in mutual funds, so that was not going to be an option. And then the brokerage that I'm with, I just got introduced right away to kind of a large arm of private lenders, private lending with borrowers. So professional borrowers that do this for a living. They've got a great reputation, good portfolios. And so I trusted that process first. And like I said, I wanted to start myself first to see how it would go. So I was very lucky to be introduced, through a brokerage. And everything is, very overseen, and we have to follow compliance, and we have to do due diligence. So So it made me feel very comfortable that it was tied to land and to property. And we have a due process here in Canada that if someone doesn't pay their mortgage, it doesn't take long to get a for sale sign, up at the in front of the house. And that is how you can recoup your money when you're tied to the land and the property. So it felt very good. It felt very good to me to do that.
And then, so, Jersey and Jagger, how did that come about?
Well, so I was first introduced to it about when I was going to grade 9. So this was about 6 or 7 years ago now, or 6 years ago now. But I was working throughout grade 7 and 8, and I ended up saving up around $5,000. And my mom introduced me to private lending, and I wasn't really sure about it at first. Like I was like, oh no, this is all my money going to be gone. Like I don't know. I'm not too sure about it. Yeah, because originally I wanted to buy a car with the money I'm saving up, but I realized $5,000 isn't that much to get a car. I'll probably have to get like a crap car if I wanted to buy it with that $5,000. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I could put it into investment. So I finally said okay to it because I wasn't sure at first, but after I said okay, it was like 2-3 weeks after I was like, oh no, my money's gone. But then now that I'm seeing it now, it's my $5,000 has turned into $10,000. So it's definitely worth it for sure.
Well, that's
the work ethic too, because after I had the discussion with him, I did disclose. Yeah. I didn't steal his money. He's like, my money, I want a car. But it was, that long, instant gratification or long term. And I said, well, sorry, you can drive our car. That's the point. It's too expensive to go out on your own insurance. So let's do this trade-off and continue on the path. You're locked in for 2 years. Like we can't get out of it. It's a commitment. And I think that's important too. Like you're committing to something and you should, pull out of it.
So I got a job landscaping for those 2 years while I was driving my parents' car. And then I ended up saving up around $12,000. And then I paid for my car I have now in cash. So,
well, congratulations. Good for you. Excellent end result. Excellent process. What a great mother you have.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry, just because, we started kind of in-house, and I did have a good opportunity because it's not easy to get a private lend at $5,000. So to kind of clarify that, it was, someone that I know that we've lent to before, and he just needed closing costs on a rent to own. So it was about maybe $7,800. So we said, you've got the $5,000, we'll make up the difference, and we'll go through this together. So and we want to see that compound. And I've done it a few times. You kind of forget that the rule of 72 and how long it takes to double your money. And at that time he was making 12% for the first 2 years, and then that one came due. But because he had the car, he was happy. That's all he wanted was the car. Because I say, of course, having a budget is very important, but I always say there's nothing stopping us from making more money. Side hustle, extra hours, 2 jobs. So I said, well, you can still go get a car, make more money and go get a car. So now the urge to take up this money isn't there as much, So now we turned it into a 2-year investment at 12% interest, and now it's been moved into a 15% interest. And that's been going on for about two years now, or a little longer. So it's pretty much at the $10,000 mark now. And now we're having the conversation about buying a house one day. Because we talked about
putting a down payment on a house and stuff, right? Because it's going to be really hard for my age group eventually. Like it's getting really expensive now, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford a house if in a couple of years when I want to move out and stuff. So this is definitely one way that'll help me a lot start my life and start moving into a home that I want to.
Was it what was it, Nicole, that you were sharing with the boys? Because as I said, we don't get this education. So what was it that made you think that this was important to be able to share with them, to be able to instruct them? And then how did you convince them? Or did you convince them? How did you convince them to be able to delay their gratification?
Well, I think it's that idea of like taking a portion, right? So when they get their paychecks and things like that, of course, they're, they go out and have some fun and go get some treats and go to the movies or things like that, right? But to always say, like, let's divide this up and always have a portion of savings for yourself, because we never know when emergencies will come up. And talking about investment is the idea of, if you can tell a young person that you can make money while you sleep, it's kind of like, what? Right? So if they can learn young, because I didn't know this, and now my family is getting more into private lending. My dad, I've introduced him to it. And he's a self-employed, person, still working. He's in his 70s, still likes to do what he wants to do as a self-employed person, but hadn't had that, pension thing to count on, and wasn't, overly stacked on RSPs. So I said, let's create a pension for you, a monthly pension. So I think it's just that overlay of all the different things that you can do, with the private lending, but it does take, the discipline. So if I've always taught them one thing, it's like, yeah, you get your check, divide it into 4, into 3, or whatever's coming up, and you have the short-term goals and the long-term goals. So if you can always set up, 20 to 25% or something as set it and forget it money, and that's earning money, and that can work as hard or harder than you have to, and earning money while you sleep, and it'll be there. And we went over the compounding interest thing. Then they kind of got that. But it's also like
the biggest, I don't know, the biggest thing for me too is like just driving in general. Like, even though like I wanted the car, but she let me drive their cars for 2 years, so I was okay with it, because I still was able to go with my friends every night and have my fun and do all that stuff without having my own car. I could still take their car and do what I wanted. So that was still fine with me, like, because I was still able to do what I wanted without having my own car.
Yeah, for sure. You're able to compromise, find a compromise,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, if I said I want 90% of your paycheck, it would have ended really quickly. It wouldn't have been as fun, right? So if it doesn't hurt too much, and if they build that habit early, because we know this, right? We all would have been millionaires if we would have started at their age, right? So and that just seems like kind of a hairy-fairy concept, but when he learns in such a short amount of time that $5,000 becomes $10,000, and and we see the price of houses, and we've been talking about first purchase 5% down. What does that look like? If you're in Hamilton, probably an $800,000 purchase, but even whether he does it or not, just trying to feed that idea of perhaps you could buy a small townhome or a condo, and then you invite friends to move in, and then they help pay your mortgage. So just getting that concept of leverage, getting the concept of having someone help pay your mortgage, and things like that is what I'm trying to instill early, because I don't want to buy them houses. They can buy their own houses. It's the idea of you don't give fish, you teach people how to fish. So I want them to learn how to fish.
Oh, that is absolutely excellent, and perhaps you should write a course. We'll think about that another time. You mentioned your dad, and you said that your dad had been self-employed and was still working into his 70s, but you also mentioned that he was doing some private lending to either to supplement or maybe to be his pension. Could you say a little bit more? Because did he start private lending and teach you, or did it go the other way around?
Yeah, it was the other way around. I think at one point, after a few months, he's like, whoa, we keep getting this money every month. What's going on here? Right. I was like, yep, that's the concept. And, he was kind of along the lines like, why are you, telling me or teaching me about money? Right. But again, if it's not taught to us, if we're not exposed to it, we would never know. And, he's an auctioneer, and he's again in his 70s, and, there's things that he loves to do, his own big auctions here over just outside of Windsor area, like construction and farm equipment. But he does travel to the States to do weekly auctions. And then COVID hit and all those things, right? And it just, I think, maybe started to get a little frustrating. And, I said, well, maybe we could get to the point where we can supplement like that aspect, and you can just do what you love, right? So, I mean, he does love it all, but I think probably he's getting to the point in his life where he wants to be able to choose to do the things that are more preferable, and maybe be closer to home and not travel across the border. So so we're going to be looking at doing a little bit more now that it's been over probably about a year and a half that he's steadily been, just rinsing and repeating. So even if a deal comes due, then we just find a next deal to get him into, and he rolls into the next deal, him and my stepmom, and they move through those deals and earn a monthly income.
And so you were the one who explained this to them and helped them understand it, and maybe even set it up initially, and then he's doing more of the thinking about it now, or is it still more you and he's just getting the benefit? And not that it's any of my business actually, but I'm just yeah.
No, I think just by explaining it to them, and then they see the money rolling in, and then it's like, here's a new deal, and my stepmom will get that in and look it over and say, well, what do you think? And we we'll discuss the property or where the area or the borrower, to see if it's a good fit. And now they totally get the concept. And it was interesting because we just went through this really big cottage renovation, and things took much longer. Things were getting a lot tighter, and the nerves were coming up. And having a discussion with my mom and my stepdad, I had come to learn a story where they had to be on the opposite end of borrowing private funds, and it was because they were financing a big furniture store and all of this stuff. And based on their income, because my stepdad was retired, they had to, she's like, it was like the loan sharks. I was paying like mafia rates of like 10%. But it's nice to be receiving that, right? But it is harder. But she said, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't happen. We wouldn't have got to the store. We wouldn't have been able to move forward with our business, which ended up being their retirement nest egg. So it's interesting, to learn that after the fact that my mom had gone through that. And now, I can be on both sides, like helping people find, private money or loaning out their money to earn interest. So it was interesting concept that she had been through that process on the opposite end of the spectrum.
I think, we alluded to the fact that there are a lot of Canadians who don't know that they can, whether they've got money in their home, so equity in their home, or maybe they've got some other money from somewhere else. They don't know that they can loan it out privately. They think that, only banks can do that, or you buy stocks or mutual funds or whatever it is. So can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the people who are lending out their private money, and if you've got any stories about I don't know, some of the people, or how this is helpful to them? Do you have anything that you'd like to share with us?
Definitely. I mean, on the lending part, a lot of my clients, whether they're, some of them, like I have a couple right now, they just bought their first home. Just in a year, they've seen a great amount of appreciation, and they know they have, equity that is sitting inside the home. And we know the values of homes are going up so quickly. But really, our home is only worth what it's worth until, one, we either sell it, right, and we get the cash, or we leverage it and we go in and we save a safe amount, that 20% equity that the banks require in the home. And then, if your income supports pulling that much equity out, you retrieve the equity, and then you can create the HELOC, the home equity line of credit, which is your cheapest form of borrowing next to your mortgage. And generally it's interest only payments, and you can have options, to put that even into a little mini mortgage. But it allows you to jump off the diving board and be able to leverage a little bit. So that's one way that, I've done it that way, because if it's, say, 2.5%, and you're borrowing to invest, the first part of that is the interest is 100% tax deductible. And then you're putting that into an investment that's, could be making 10, 12, 15%. Now, of course, you are paying interest against that money, but at the end of the year, you are, able to recoup some of that on the level of reducing your income, right, for the interest that's tax deductible. And then I have other clients that, have cash. And then a lot of people will use the registered funds. So if you do move your registered funds, it has to go through more of a trust company. There's only a few in Canada that do this. And there's one in particular that we like to work with, which is Olympia Trust. Community Trust used to do it. They don't do it anymore. But that's where you can take your RSPs from any institution, have them transferred over into, say, I'll just use an example, Olympia Trust, where they are now self-directed. So they're staying under the umbrella of the RSP. They moved there, so you're not paying tax. It's still under the umbrella, but that now they're self-directed. And that was actually, I'm probably going all over the place a little bit, but it's just coming back to my memory. The first thing that we actually did, I had lost a lot of money on, a lira that I had and some RSPs. And I thought, I can't stand this anymore. I can't stand not having enough control in the volatile market. Some world leader sneezes, you lose 30%. So we heard about this, we moved it in there. And then we loaned it out on a first mortgage. And so that can be done, and it's registered on title. It could be a first or even a second mortgage, and you can use RESPs, RRSPs, TFSAs, and LIRAs to invest. And so that's another set it and forget it. And if you want to diversify, again, you can have parts of it in mutual funds, but then you can have some in real estate. So maybe you're feeling a little more balanced, that it's not all in the stock market. And have something tied to land and property.
Absolutely. That's really cool. Both that you can do that. It's legal.
Yeah.
It's legal. You're able to do it. It's a Canadian thing. We talked about RRSPs. That's Canada. So this is what you can do in RESPs and TFSAs. This is what you can do in Canada, and people are doing this. And then I know I've been thinking a little bit in the past, because I've got some money in the stock market, and the stock market's gone up, and then it's gone down, and then it's gone up, and for all the craziness, like I don't know, 2008, and then there was the recent one in 2020, and it goes way down. But I always thought to myself, well, that's okay, because it's going to come back up again, and I have time. Mm-hmm. As the time gets shorter, and I start to think, wait a sec, I'm not sure I have quite as much time as I think I do. I'm now beginning to get a little bit more worried about that volatility, and I'm beginning to wonder about, should I be moving some of the money into something that's a little bit more predictable? Now, I don't want to be so predictable that it's like 1% per year. That's not the predictability that I want. I want something better than that. But yeah, I'm beginning to wonder for myself about nothing wrong with the stock market. Not, it's great, but it has swings, and I'm just always been very grateful that I wasn't on the downside of a swing.
And now we're starting to ask, like, do we have the 20 years? Like, I'm 50, right? Do we have the 20 years to recover, right? This loss that could potentially happen. And I guess I'll admit, like, I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I like having a contract, right? So if I lose 30%, am I going to go on Berkshire Hathaway's door and knock and say, hi, it's me? When's my money going to come back? Or is it going to come up? Or could I just have my money back, my initial investment? Where, this, again, land and property. So Jagger's first deal, it was in a house in St. Catharines. I said, we could get in the car and we can drive. We have the address. We won't just go knock on the door. We'll just trust that, they're making their payments and all is good. So we never did have to. But it's that idea that, again, it's tied to something that there is recourse to get your money back, especially when it's in a first or second position. That means you're first or second to get paid. And they have to sell it at fair market value. I have an investor that at one time owned like 100 properties in the Chatham area, and they had an experience, just to talk about what's the worst case scenario that could happen. They were in third position, and it was their first time kind of doing something like that. They had owned a bunch of rentals, and things started to fall apart. And they thought, oh, we're in third position. That's not great. So they looked at everything that they could do. They went out and bought out the bank and the second position mortgage. And then they had their third, and they thought, we're just going to take it over, right? Because that's the thing. You can wait to get paid, or you can do something like that and have more control. And they paid everyone out. They went in and cleaned up all the rooms. It was a multiplex. And it ended up being their best performing property out of all their properties. It was the best thing that kind of had ever happened. But, they got in the driver's seat and took control. And there's not to say that they, would never have got paid in third position. It's just you're in the, you're down on the bottom of the list there a little bit. So they took the bull by the horns and got themselves in that position. And that's the recourse. You can, get your money back. You could end up taking over the property. You can sell it. You can rent it out. You could move in it. So there's options, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's maybe why, if you can either do it that yourself, or that's where the role of a mortgage agent, mortgage broker comes in, because you can help instruct and do some of the due diligence, or other companies that would be able to have the education and the knowledge about, where maybe you should invest or how you should invest. So there, you can do it on your own. Like, private means that it's your money, but you don't have to be all by yourself in the process.
Definitely. And that's the thing, like, you can, work with somebody to see how can we make this happen. And maybe something like that ends up being your joint venturing with someone to clear it up and turn it over, or you're just getting, creative with the financing, or leveraging maybe your personal home just to get it done, right? So you can sell it, rent it out, and make it profitable.
And is this what you're doing now, Nicole? Is this more of, are you guys, is this the plan going forward? More private lending? What's your plan going forward?
Yeah. So, after, we were kind of getting into the goals of, our lifestyle and whatnot, we knew we always wanted to have a cottage, and we kept saying, oh, put it off, and we'll have to own all these properties to get the cottage. And we thought, no, let's just get the cottage. Let's get the cottage. And then, okay, if we only rent a cottage twice a year, right, then let's sacrifice. Let's, put time, labor, find something that we really want, and then we can rent it out. We can keep our 2 weeks or 3 weeks a year to ourselves and rent it out to help recoup our costs. And that's what we did. So we just literally finished that a couple months ago. So that was huge for us. It was like, you have vision boards, you have all these things you want, but it's like, it was hard. It was really, really hard.
I'm sure.
It was like the worst reno job we've ever had to do. It should have been a tear down, but that's a whole other story. But we did it. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's ours. And so right now, I mean, anything could change, but I'm loving mortgages. I'm so busy with that. So now it's the cottage, and that's getting paid for. We have our times there that we can enjoy, but I love the idea of passive investing and private lending. But we think, eventually, my husband's, 3 to 5 years away from retiring. And then these guys will be at the point where we hope that they do have their money saved and that they could, so then we'll jump in and help them. And who knows, maybe we'll all qualify together and we'll get back into it, right? And get them going if that's something that they want to do. Because with all of this, they've also learned the skills of the renovation, like, flooring and drywall and mud and even, little bits of electric. Right? So
is that what you see for yourself, Jagger? Is that what's your plan?
Sure.
Is it?
Yeah, definitely. I think moving on forward, I could see myself getting into stuff like that, like definitely renovating and like investing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Piqued your interest.
It's hard, but I think it's like the reward at the end. They even like the end, like the staging and the chopping the pillows, and it was just like so rewarding to see.
Seeing the before and after is crazy.
Yeah, because we've got
It is.
Yeah.
Well, I think that has just been wonderful sharing your story. Thank you, Nicole, and thank you in particular, Jagger. I know it is not easy when you're 19 to be sitting on in a Zoom call with your mom and some other people. So so thank you so much for being willing to share your story and being open with us. And if anybody wanted to reach out to you to be able to, talk about mortgages, maybe they need one, maybe they would like more information about private lending, like whatever, your contact information will be in the notes. But in case somebody is listening to this, how might they get a hold of you?
Well, thank you. So REI Wealth, as in Real Estate Investors Wealth, .ca is my website, so reiwealth.ca, and my email is reiwealth@protonmail.com. And those are probably the best ways to reach out to me. And even my phone number is fine, 905-407-0210, which you'll find on the website. And yeah, we definitely, can get to know each other with an introduction call, see where, people are starting and where they want to be. And it's about bridging the gap, in between. So whether it's needing to refinance to get that chunk of cash and buy a rental or get into the private lending aspect, or seeing what they have available in RSPs and introducing them to some of those deals, so they can start to see what it looks like and get a feel for it.
Cool. Now, Stacy, you usually ask a question at the end, and I'm just remembering that we need to do that. So go ahead.
I love asking this question. I've asked all our guests so far this question, and I would love for you both to be able to answer it because I'm sure you have different ideas on it. So if someone were to be brand new, looking to get into the real estate investing sphere, from both your perspectives, what kind of advice would you give them? What would you say their first steps would be?
Well, I think definitely it is surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and it doesn't that cascade over everything, right? Whether it's you want to get healthier or whatever that is that you aspire to have, be, or do, is surrounding yourself with people who are doing it successfully. And, I'm not going to get this right. It's a summary of, what you're the top 20% of who you hang out with or something like that, right? It's like raising your knowledge, your vibration, your level of understanding to a higher level by hanging out with people who are doing it. So that's definitely, for me, I think the starting point, because we have a lot of negative naysayers as well. Sometimes friends or family or different people who don't have a clue, or they're risk adverse, or, they've heard a bad story from someone. You're not going to get that support, right? So really finding, shopping around some different groups and starting to listen to YouTubes and podcasts, episodes, and getting some of the knowledge, and then jumping in and surrounding yourself with people. Because I find in this world, people really want to help each other. They really do. And people will end up working together and helping each other, because someone might be a borrower and someone might be a lender. So I think it's one of the most positive arenas to be in. That's been my experience.
Fabulous. And what about you? Yeah.
I think just being open to doing it, because at first I was kind of just shutting my mom down, just because I didn't want to give away my money and stuff. And then after she explained to me and showed me how her money is rising and all this stuff, and I kind of opened up to it a bit more, and kind of just let my mom kind of introduce me into it. And then once that happened, I was very wanting to do it and do even more of it in the future coming forward when I start my new job and get more money, and eventually doing it more when I'm getting older and stuff and getting a new home and all that.
Yeah. He just got into a 3-year rent seal journeyman apprenticeship for welding. And so this is always me, right? I'm always everything can be a job. I'm up at the cottage, you can weld people's docks, their boats. I'm always looking for that, right? That extra thing that, whatever it could be. But they're such hard workers. They pick up all the jobs easy. So they were
Yeah, that's amazing. So just being open-minded to it. And again, it sounds like the same thing, being open-minded to it and surrounding yourself with people that know more than you do, and being open to different ways of doing things. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Amazing. Good. Well, thank you both.
Yes. Thank you both for your time, for being open with us. And Stacy, if people wanted to reach out to us and find out where they could get a hold of us, how might they do that?
They can reach us on Instagram at equity_hub, or feel free to email us at equityhubcanada@gmail.com.
With that, thank you very much, and everybody have a good day, and that's a wrap.